Tonight, former Finance Minister said Tekpe jumps to the defense of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank for their numerous warnings to the government over the poor fiscal state of the economy.
I would say that since a reduction in expenditure itself limits the fiscal space, as has been said in the past, let us expedite it and go in the next, maybe even 1 month.
We have these and more coming up shortly. With me, Beverly Broohm. Please stay with us. Minister said Tekpe has jumped to the defense of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank for their numerous warnings to the government over the poor fiscal state of the economy. The IMF, in its 2019 Article 4 review, warned the government to cut its rising debt and budget deficit to sustainable levels. Again, the World Bank president in 2022 urged the country to join the G20 COVID-19 debt service suspension initiative. However, some Ghanaians believe the two Bretton Woods institutions contributed to the challenges facing the economy today. In a tweet, Mr. Tekpe, however, said the fund and the World Bank cautioned the country about the potential serious risk of debt distress if it does not bring its house to order.
We need, as a nation, to come to a resolution of the debt, factor. Because if you take BOG needs, help. BOG depleted not just our city reserves, which were some of which belong to government, but the dollar reserves, because BOG, when we say finance the deficit, was actually using those reserves in forex. That's why they are depleted to meet our debt commitments up to a time when not much significant flows were coming in, and I think it's also interesting that we are talking about expenditure now. I would say that we don't have to wait for 6 months, to take a review, to Parliament. We should go to Parliament with a statement. And I'm not saying anything which we did not do. Prior to, the budget of, I believe, 2014, 2015, we went to Parliament with statements and asked for certain measures that we wanted to take. And the reason I'm saying that we don't have to wait is that, one, we know the figures. We know that we are in arrears of a pipeline of 77 billion, 24 billion or so included in the medium term, of course, with some items which we need to clarify. We know that we did not reduce expenditure, and we know that even as we are speaking today, we have so much, deficit. And we know that we are having difficulty financing it. We don't need somebody to come and tell us, because who are those who finance domestically if we do not have access, to the external markets? It is a mobilization which is done by the same banks, who buy the treasury bills, who buy the bonds, which are the subject of discussion. And we cannot, and so we know these facts, and the numbers are there. So I would say that since a reduction in expenditure itself limits the fiscal space, as has been said in the past, let us expedite it and go in the next, maybe even 1 month. And that would even give confidence, that the government, is doing its part as far as the legacy projects and other expenditures, are concerned. The size of government, this has been raised, so why wait for, 6 months? In fact, 7 months, because the media review has often presented, statutorily, at the end of July. Because
now, the Bank of Ghana has clarified its position on the extent to which it financed the budget deficit for last year. The bank, in a statement, maintained this is because there was no fiscal limit last year. The central bank also rejected arguments that the overdraft was uncovered by the IMF. George Riafe has been going through the statements and joins us this evening. First off, George, give us the background to this whole development.
So you've been following developments on the media landscape. First was a report that came from Bloomberg that sought to suggest that the IMF, doing their audit, has uncovered some billions of Ghana cedis in terms of financing of government operations. Literally, some headlines were even sort of suggest that the Bank of Ghana has printed X amount of money to finance government operation. But in a statement just that came a while ago, the Bank of Ghana sought to clarify the extent to which it financed government operation. Now, the news also was that it was uncovered by the IMF. If you go through the statement as well, they also explained that this was even an arrangement that they were having as part of the IMF program. They were having discussions with the fund, and it wasn't something that the IMF itself has to uncover those things because of what is going on. Rather, they disclosed that thing to the IMF in terms of the fact that looking at our current challenges and all the rest, there might be a need where we might have an overdraft. The government might be requesting for an overdraft. And that is why they might grant this overdraft because of the current challenges that the country is going through. Again, the argument was that these were monies that were advanced or printed for consumption. If you again go through the statement, it explains that apparently these funds that were paid or allowed government to do overdraft were bonds that were maturing, that certain individuals needed to deal with the medical situation, to pay their kids' school fees and all the rest. So the argument that Bank of Ghana went out to fiscally print money to finance government's operation in terms of consumption is actually not the case.
All right. So do you have an idea of the amount of money we are talking about here?
So the Bank of Ghana, if you go through the statement that they've issued, and I know they'll be putting it up on the screen, it gives a breakdown of the actual amount and how the financing was actually done. And it gives a breakdown that some were advanced, some bonds, some were also advanced. So if you do a total of the amount of money overdraft, it's a little over 40-something billion Ghana cedis. And these monies went into finance bonds that had matured. These were individual, these were commercial banks. And if you go through the statement, actually it gives a breakdown of how these monies were done. And again, the argument was that it was gone beyond the fiscal responsibility limit. Apparently, we also get the understanding that that Responsibility Act was waived, I think, in 2020 because of COVID and the other issues, which actually puts a cap on how much Bank of Ghana can finance government's operation when they are doing these overdrafts and what they call the budget deficit. But it appears that at that time, that limit was not in place for even Bank of Ghana to breach that limit because it was suspended because of COVID and all those things. So the argument that they had breached the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that places the limit on how much the Bank of Ghana can finance government is not actually true. So it is basically, if you want to break the issues down, government as an accountant at the Bank of Ghana. And just like you and I, in terms of any banking operations, you can ask for an overdraft when you're having some challenges. Again, if you go through that statement, the Bank of Ghana tries to state that based on the financing arrangement that they have with government, anytime any money falls in that account, they'll use it to plug the hole. So this is not money that has gone missing or some people have sat somewhere to chop the money, but these are funds that can be recovered. And as you go on, the Bank of Ghana right now has been working with the IMF to have a zero financing budget, which has actually kicked in indirectly. And they are going to work to get Parliament approval for that to be approved as well to ensure that they have a zero financing for government operations going forward.
So the BOG financing government operations, is it a new thing or it's something that has been in existence for some time?
I think it has been there for quite a while, but in previous years, there was a limit that was placed. I remember when that bill was taken to Parliament and we were trying to do a zero, they actually did somewhere around 5% or so to ensure that in crisis moment, Bank of Ghana can come in to finance. And the Bank of Ghana statement actually tries to explain that it is not. So this is just a breakdown of how the financing was done. If you go through, it talks about the fact that against this backdrop, 7.2 billion Ghana cedis representing Bank of Ghana's purchase of treasury bonds from the banks to provide them with liquidity to enable them meet their obligations of customers. So these were some internal arrangement where monies were advanced and it wasn't printing of fiscal money because the Bank of Ghana says that again, that it takes somewhere about even a year to even get monies requested if you want to fiscally print money. You also look at the second dot and it talks about 8.9 billion Ghana cedis representing an on-lending facilities granted by the IMF for onward lending to government of Ghana. And it comes to this bit where it talks about 39.9 billion Ghana cedis representing an overdraft extended to government solely meant for purchase of addressing auction shortfalls in terms of the bonds here again and paying customers whose bonds had matured, for which government did not have the adequate resources. At the same time, government deposit liabilities with the Bank of Ghana recorded an increase of 9.5 billion Ghana cedis. Now, on net basis, that is the actual money put together, all these claims net off the deposit liabilities. These transactions resulted in an increase in Bank of Ghana's net claims with government, that is in terms of financing, has to do with 44.5 billion Ghana cedis. Now, the latter part of the statement says that we would like to draw the public's attention to the statement made by Harun Idrisu during the 2023 budget discussions in Parliament, which he requested the Finance Minister to brief Parliament on the extent of Bank of Ghana's financing of government budgets on the new limit agreed. We expect that this will be complied with. So it appears that that had already been done. Yeah. The law required that, the law said even though there is a limit when you go through the law also gives an instance where when there's a crisis, the controller, the finance minister, and the Bank of Ghana should meet and agree and look at where the challenge of the country is in. And after that is agreed, the finance minister is supposed to go to Parliament to brief Parliament on that. It appears that didn't happen, and that is where you might want to raise concerns. But if you go through the statement, the Bank of Ghana tries to assure us that this was for bond situations and there wasn't money that was advanced for it to be consumed. But based on their financing arrangement, that money can be recovered.
Thank you so much. George Riafe is my colleague, giving us some insights on the statement released by the Bank of Ghana. Now, the domestic debt exchange program is likely to weigh on the balance sheet of commercial banks and consequently reduce credit to the private sector. That's according to international research and market information firm Fitch Solutions. In its January 2023 Sub-Saharan Africa update, Fitch Solutions said the reduction in loans, particularly to corporate institutions, will impact on the economy. Mike Kroninga is a senior country risk analyst in charge of Sub-Saharan Africa.
When talking about access to credit, another factor that I think is really important to mention here is Ghana's domestic debt restructuring program. So while negotiations are still ongoing, the likely restructuring of domestic debt will weigh on commercial banks' balance sheets, weakening their ability to issue loans to corporates, so further restricting access to credit for businesses. Given the high levels of consumer price inflation that we're still seeing, rising taxes under the IMF program, and higher interest rates, we believe that political instability is likely to rise in Ghana in 2023. So if we shift our attention to the right-hand side chart, you can see that the Ghana's short-term political risk index has been on a downward trend for the past 12 months.
Government has assured that it will use the media budget in July this year to announce some expenditure reviews. It follows Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta's announcement that some expenditure cuts will be undertaken to complement the domestic debt exchange program. Here's more in this report.
Joy Business understands that there are some reviews currently ongoing that will first hit the macroeconomic targets for it to be adjusted in July this year, when the Finance Minister presents the mid-year review of budget estimates to Parliament. Government is also working on the expenditure numbers that will result in some cuts, as well as bring the end-of-year target to some favourable levels. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is projecting to spend about 205 billion Ghana cedis by the end of 2023. However, based on what we are picking up, this amount could go down significantly after July this year. One area that will be immediately affected is the interest payment expenditure as captured in the 2023 budget. This is because of the current debt exchange program and how that could impact on this expenditure item. I could also see the numbers come down significantly. Government is also working with the World Bank to review some of government's flagship social intervention programs, and how that expenditure allocation can also be reviewed going forward. Well, it is not clear for now whether these expenditure cuts will be that significant to support the current debt exchange program that has resulted in some bondholders losing significant amount of their investment. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has told Joy Business that government remains committed to reducing its expenditure to fall in line with the current challenges facing the economy.
To the agriculture sector now, and the Pig Farmers Association of Ghana has told Joy Business it will meet today to take a decision on whether to demonstrate against the Ministry of Finance in the coming days. This comes after it complained that a policy to import pork into the country will collapse their local businesses. But a response from the ministry has pushed the association to consider the next action to take. The following report has more.
The Pig Farmers Association of Ghana earlier served notice its members will go on a demonstration against the government's decision to allow the Ministry of Food and Agriculture sign a third-party agreement for the importation of large quantities of pork from the United States. In a statement, the ministry denied the assertion that it has entered into such an agreement with a third-party organization. It explained that the Veterinary Services Directorate of the ministry requested from the veterinary medical officers in the USA for certification for meat and poultry healthiness intended to be exported to Ghana. The Pig Farmers Association, however, say they will interrogate the response from the ministry and later announce a decision by close of day whether to demonstrate or not.
Outgoing Deputy Trade and Industry Minister Herbert Krapper has expressed optimism the government's industrialization agenda will witness significant boost this year as over 30 Japanese companies declare interest to invest in Ghana's automotive, manufacturing and pharmaceutical industries. According to him, the presence of these foreign investors will provide better opportunities for the business community in Ghana, partner and participate in the African Continental Free Trade Area. Mr. Krapper spoke to Joy Business at a business climate and networking cocktail in Accra.
The Japanese business delegation are in the country to partner Ghanaian businesses in the areas of agriculture, trade, manufacturing, transport and other relevant sectors of the economy. The existence of these foreign businesses will afford the Ghanaian business community a unique opportunity to network and share business ideas together in their respective trade areas. Speaking to Joy Business at the briefing of Ghanaian Business Climate and Networking Cocktail, outgoing Deputy Trade and Industry Minister Herbert Krapper mentioned that the over 30 Japanese businesses' presence in Ghana will boost government's industrialization drive.
33 businesses from Japan is going to increase Japanese presence in Ghana in terms of manufacturing, agro-processing, and of course Honda, which is part of the delegation, who are in the process of setting up an assembly plant here. All of that machinery and equipment, assembly and manufacturing of parts, all of that is going to help with the industrialization agenda that we are currently implementing.
President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, said its members will take advantage of this partnership in order to leverage on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
We've been able to establish what we are best known to be doing, and that we have to go a bit further if we want to industrialize as a country. And that's why we deem such meetings very important, because if you partner with such groups coming from Japan, such a high technological destination, then of course we are going somewhere. That's why everybody is showing its enthusiasm to find a partner, a suitable partner in these investors that have come here. So we are overly excited and making sure that we are able to bridge up with these investors so that we can also transform the businesses that we do from the main trading. But most of the time it starts with trading, and after they've known the potential here, then we move into the manufacturing sector. So you know, the Continental Free Trade Area also, we are bracing ourselves to take every advantage in it, but we cannot do it alone unless we have big-time investors such as this.
On his part, Japanese ambassador to Ghana, His Excellency Hisanobu Muchudiki, expressed Japan's commitment to continue to invest in Ghana.
Great business opportunities for foreign investors. The Ghana Beyond Aid agenda of the government is to drive the country from aid to trade. Ghana is also characterized by its stable political and security situation. These are reasons why Japanese companies have the confidence to engage the Ghana business community for partnership and cooperation.
The Japan External Trade Organization is a Japanese government agency supporting trade and investments between Japan and the rest of the world.
Executive Chairman of the World Trade Center Accra and investment banker Togbe Afede the 14th is asking local businesses to take advantage of the current economic crisis to expand their operations. Speaking to Joy Business at the launch of the 53rd General Assembly of the World Trade Centers Association, he stressed the need for local firms to leverage partnerships with other foreign businesses to support economic growth and improve various productive sectors.
The World Trade Centers Association focuses on business opportunities across the continents of Africa and beyond, bringing together new and expanded opportunities. According to Togbe Afede the 14th, businesses in Ghana should not allow the current challenges to stifle their growth.
The whole objective of GA 2023 is to bring in a lot of potential investors in our country and of course across Africa. As I said, Ghana is still a small country, and I think we derive more mileage making this program an African program. As a people, we have to be ready for all who are going to come from across the world, including Africa, to meet here in April. So our entrepreneurs must be ready. Our bankers must be ready. A lot of people are going to come into this country with interest in a broad array of sectors, from energy to aviation to agriculture to infrastructure. We simply have to be ready to engage with, if possible, specific opportunities or investment ideas for partnership.
He entreated governments to develop new strategies to avoid crowding out effects on the private sector.
This kind of backward-looking approach, I call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. It exports the past into the future until we start looking at it properly, okay? And determine interest rates based on expectation, as opposed to based on what happened in the past, bad past. We cannot break out of it. I think there must be a change in approach where we are looking forward in fixing interest rates than looking backwards. Again, the crowding out is an issue of interest rates. The only way to achieve it is to get interest rates lowering. And the only way to lower interest rates is to stop looking back. When you are targeting 8% inflation over the next 1 year, then you look back at year-on-year inflation of 25% to set interest rate going forward. We cannot break out of it. And that's what I say has created a vicious cycle of high interest rates, high inflation, high interest rates, and that crowds all of us out.
This year's 53rd General Assembly of the World Trade Centers Association is under the theme Towards African Economic Integration and Enhanced Global Presence. The event will run from April 23 to 25 this year.
Chiefs and youth groups in the 5 Newmont Ahafo North areas have appealed to the government to evoke state laws to ensure the start of the mining projects without further delays. Some aggrieved farmers have refused to grant the mining company access to their farms and other properties over compensation-related issues. At a joint press conference, the chiefs and youth groups accused Wakam of brainwashing the farmers, but warned the government to act to pave the way for the project expected to create employment for the youth and help develop the communities. Precious Semevo has more.
Tetre, Adroba, Susanso, Efrisipa, and Yamfo in the Tano North district of the Ahafo region are the host communities of the Newmont Ahafo North project. But some aggrieved farmers have refused to grant access to their farms and other properties over compensation-related issues. According to the chiefs and coalition of Ahafo North youths, attempts by the key stakeholders to engage the farmers for an amicable solution proved futile, and they accused Wakam of being behind it. At a joint press conference at Efrisipa, Nana Obonin Nkrare IV, the chief of Efrisipa, noted that the situation left them with no option but to appeal to the government to use state powers for the project to commence for the communities and Ghana's benefit. Some of our people disagree with Newmont, but after engagement, they agreed to allow access to their lands, only for them to back out on the advice of Wakam. If they will not back down for an amicable resolution, then I appeal to the government to use the LI to resolve it, to pave way for Newmont to start the project, to ease our suffering. We don't want February to end without any sign. We are determined and will not allow a few individuals to frustrate our progress. The coalition warned Wakam to cease all operations in the communities, else they would be faced squarely. Richard Yeboah is the vice chairman.
The coalition, knowing the kind of development coming into our community, will not sit down for Wakam to disrupt a project that will benefit the youth and the community at large for their selfish interest. The coalition would like to send a caution to Wakam to desist from any attempt to disrupt the Newmont Ahafo North project, because the coalition and Ananom are ready to face them squarely and their anti-mining ideology. We again ask our brothers and sisters to come to the table for amicable solution. However, since we cannot compel them, we ask the government to act collectively to pave way for the progress of the project, whilst using the process to address the individual's concern.
Meanwhile, some aggrieved farmers have appealed to the government and other stakeholders to also ensure that the agreed compensations are paid in time to avoid the devaluation of their money. Precious Semevo, Joy News, Efrisipa.
That's our bulletin for this evening. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. I am Beverly Broohm. Next is sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullah. Please stay with us.